With the dawn of AI, there's no reason why you can't have 100% of your calls evaluated regularly. And there's a lot of really inexpensive and darn near free solutions that will help you listen to calls and go through some things.
Welcome to Jobbers Masters of Home Service, a podcast for home service pros by home service pros. We're in Las Vegas, and today we're talking about your cancellation rate, other metrics, and how to improve your job metrics. I'm your host, Adam Sylvester. Today's guest is marketing expert Katie Donovan. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Why don't you tell our listeners who you are and what you do?
My name is Katie Donovan. I'm the CEO of Camp Digital. We are a digital marketing company just for the trades. Camp actually stands for Capacity Aligned Marketing Platform. So we take a slightly different approach to how we market into the trades.
Katie, most people, I think, tend to think about marketers being responsible for just getting leads. But you have a different approach. You think a lot of the responsibility of cancellations and some of these metrics, booking rates, those kinds of things, actually fall on you as the marketer. So can you explain that for us?
Not necessarily responsibility, but marketing should always be subservient to operations. There's so many things I think we just think about, just get leads, throw them over the fence, and everything else will take care of itself, but it doesn't. And there's so much waste in marketing because we don't take time to work with our partners in operations. A really great example of that is something I think we're going to talk a little bit about today, which is understanding those KPIs, the key performance indicators of business, and how those KPIs can influence what you're doing in marketing. Great example, one we were talking about earlier, is cancellation rates. And those fluctuate by season. But knowing those cancellation rates may mean, if it's HVAC company, for instance, it's the first big heat coming through or the first big freeze coming through, you might actually have to throw more leads than anticipated because you're going to have some cancellation rates going over the fence.
What do you mean by that cancellation rate? People
Great question.
canceling, like what are they canceling?
What we've found, and it's been backed up by a lot of the sources that we've got from studies from some of our partners like Google, is that a lot of people now are calling multiple vendors. I'm sure you see this all the time, but they'll call 2 or 3 people as opposed to just calling one, and whoever gets there first is the person they'll work with. Most of the time, the first person that gets in the home is the one that gets the business, right? So we always want to be in the home. So they're calling more than one person at a time, more than one business at a time. And so you might get a cancellation. Or mysteriously, we see this happen a lot with drains. Oh, it fixed itself. Well, it didn't fix itself. The problem just feels like it went away for a little bit, and I don't want to deal with it till the next time I have a backup in my master tub. So a lot of times those are some of the cancellations. So the customer called, they booked, and then for some reason has called you back and said, we no longer need your services.
So people book an assessment or an appointment or a sales appointment, and then they cancel the next day
Yep.
because the appointment wasn't soon enough.
That can be it. That can be some
Yeah.
of it. What we found is some really easy things to do to help pull that cancellation rate down is some marketing. Probably not the traditional marketing most people think of when they think about marketing, but simply putting a campaign in place that does, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, thank you so much for booking the appointment with my business. We have you scheduled for Thursday and we'll be there on Thursday. Then the day before, hi, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, we have you scheduled for tomorrow. If anything changes, let us know. Otherwise, our tech will be out there. Maybe a picture of the tech if you can do it. People love that. The same day, hey, we're coming out this day. Want to just remind you, we'll be at the house. You'll get a phone call 20 minutes prior, whatever your practices and policies are for your procedures for how you do those. That will actually pull that cancellation rate down significantly because customers know they've understood what to expect in the process. They know what's coming. They know you're actually coming. They aren't shopping for other people in that meantime because they get nervous. They booked it for Thursday and they haven't heard from you, kind of thing. And when that cancellation rate comes down, you need less leads, which means you're spending less in marketing, which is a good thing for everybody, including marketers. We can get you more leads that book, that convert for revenue, the happier everybody is in that process.
Well, this year you've been reading my mail because the last few months, whenever someone cancels, thankfully we don't have very many cancellations, but we're also not like urgent services. I'm always kind of perplexed. Like, what your gutters aren't like instantly fixed. Like, what happened in the last 3 days, for example, that caused them to change their mind? And we obviously don't know the answer. Well, we can guess. And so, what are some other reasons that people tend to fall off the books?
The biggest ones that we see are threefold, right? One is either customer got somebody else to come out and do it. Even with gutters, if I'm having a party this weekend, put this off to the last minute, want to make sure the house looks great because gutters, they're kind of the smile of the house, right? They
Yeah.
sit around the outside of the house. Want to make sure that those look great. There's no plants growing out of them, as mine are. But so it's getting somebody else to come first and service me first, right? The second one is the problem solved itself. We see this a lot with water heaters, right? Suddenly the water got warm again, and that's just because something's failing in the unit. Or trust factors, right? They'll be digging up a little bit, or they went to Facebook and said, "Hey, has anyone worked with this company?" And
One bad
the
apple.
one,
Don't hire that.
you guys a
Terrible.
jerk, you cut me
Right.
off on the street, right? Those kind of things. Those are probably the three biggest ones. There's also a lot of other reasons, but again, with marketing
Mhm.
processes, especially if you've got a system, a CRM in place that can help you do these things, do the follow up, you see that reduced significantly, and the cost savings are phenomenal. I'll give you a quick example, if I may. If you're spending about $100 to get a lead, and you have a cancellation rate, say, of 10%, means $10, right?
Mhm.
If you can increase what you actually run, so decrease your cancellation rate, that savings goes right to your bottom line. One in every 10 would buy you another job. Just some
Right.
simple math, right? It's amazing what it does when you start to do that at scale, and just putting an automatic email campaign in place, or a phone follow-up process in place to let those customers know you're coming. Maybe even send them your great reviews. So if they do hear from Aunt Betty not to work with them, you've already given them the reviews that say, "I'm a 4.9 with 400 reviews. Like, trust me."
I want to get into how to track the cancellation rate because there's some misunderstandings about how to do that. But a lot of things you just mentioned, I view are like a CSR issue. Like if this is really urgent and the CSR books it a week from now, that's a mistake. I'm curious, do you guys do any direct work with the CSR to make sure they're saying the right things so that your process is set up to succeed after the CSR talks to them?
We do some call evaluation. We don't actually work directly. Our relationship is more with the owners or
Mhm.
the marketing CMOs kind of thing, chief marketing officers. But what we try and do is say, "Hey, listen, we listen to these calls and here's why they didn't book." With the dawn of AI, there's no reason why you can't have 100% of your calls evaluated regularly. It tells you, and there's a lot of really inexpensive and darn near free solutions that will help you listen to calls and go through some things.
That's interesting. I haven't heard about that. So you can use an AI to listen to your phone calls
Yep.
and then give you feedback on
Yep.
what tonality, posture,
Yep. You give it kind of.
positivity, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. There's companies out there already that do it. You can actually find stuff online, pretty inexpensive too. But you can go in and say, "Hey, listen to these calls and tell me, did they ask for the appointment? Did
Mm,
they ask for the email? What was the overall tone? Was there swearing on the call?" Right? That's a great one to look for. Yeah. I wish it wasn't a thing.
gotcha.
Yeah. If nothing else, you're going to want to listen to the ones that didn't book to hear what was really going on there.
That's really interesting. I'll add that to my homework
Yeah.
to go back and listen. I do listen to a lot of my phone calls manually though. I don't
Yeah.
I don't plug in an AI, so I'll give that a try. So in terms of how do you really know what your cancellation rate is? Because you know, the CSR can fudge some numbers,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. So how do you really know?
I think it helps to have a system, some kind of tool in place for sure. But really looking, if you have a system, really just looking at those total book calls, and then how many calls called you to unbook. There's a little bit of gray in there because I think depending on your business, sometimes we're shuffling the deck chairs around a little bit. We're calling saying, "Hey, we got really full because I had you scheduled for a tune up and a no heat call came in." You're probably going to move the tune up.
I see. Yeah, more urgent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, what you're looking for is the number of customers that call you back and cancel that appointment. And it can be hard if you don't have a system or a CRM in place. It can be
Yeah.
a real challenge to get your hands wrapped around that and some of the other kind of key performance indicators of your business.
And so is a lead just whatever? Let's talk about Jobber. So a request comes in a Jobber. There might have been 3 calls that led to that one, right? So we might get 100 calls and only get 50 leads.
Right.
How do you mash those two together?
Well, really, we're looking for that request that comes in. That request that comes into Jobber gets booked, and then how many of those books call back and say, "Hey, I no longer need your services." And my favorite is, "Hey, I'm gonna have to call you back and book it another time." Right? They're not calling back, right?
Right? Just say
Yeah,
goodbye.
yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Right, appreciate it. It's really for cancellation rate, particularly. You're looking at how many of those calls booked, and then the customer called back and said, "No longer need your services for whatever reason." And most of the time, they're not terribly transparent about it. They want to be
Yeah,
nice.
right.
Yeah.
I want to get into booking rate. Anything
Yes.
else about cancellation rate that our
No,
listeners should
I
know?
I'm thrilled that you're gonna go to booking rate because I think, and you and I were talking a little bit about this, but your marketing should really understand a few KPIs. Your booking rate being one of them, your cancellation rate, run for revenue. Because even if I book a job and I run a job, I didn't necessarily run it for revenue,
Hmm.
and then your total return and average tickets. So those KPIs are so important.
Okay, so booking rate is what exactly?
The calls that come in, and this is where I think I get in a little bit of trouble in the space, but calls that come in that actually turn into a booked appointment, whether they ran or not, but actually turn into a booked appointment. And I think I have this conversation with a lot of people. Everyone's like, mine's like 95%. Well, I mean, is it really? I mean, well, yeah, I look at those all the time. I was kind of joking with you earlier, but my parents didn't know I almost didn't graduate high school until I actually almost didn't graduate because I'm old enough for the report cards to come back in paper and I can turn any letter into an A, right?
Right.
When you're self-reporting, which most of the reporting is self-reporting, our CSRs are telling us how well they're booking, how well they're doing those things. You're not really looking at the overall calls that convert to bookings.
Yeah. So in Jobber, our listeners are using Jobber. You can look at like a salesperson's report
Yep.
and see how many quotes they sent, how many of those converted to jobs, etc. It doesn't show right now is how many leads were those quotes converted from. And so if you only, it's a very important metric, quotes to conversion. But if you don't go back in time a little
Yes.
bit and see how many leads there were and how many
Yes.
phone calls there were, you're really only getting half the story.
Right.
And so you really have to pay attention to, because you might be getting a lot of phone calls that are just not converting into
Right.
anything. And that's really costing you a lot of
And the
money.
only time you're seeing those is when they get into Jobber, right? I mean, you've
Right.
got to go a little bit more upstream, which is a little more difficult. I always tell people, look for your total calls. And I know there's a lot of where is my tech? Did
Mhm.
you pull the permits? All those kind of 3 calls just to get one book.
Yelp,
There is a lot of that
Yellow
noise.
Pages.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Vendors
Mhm.
calling, right?
Right.
Those kind of things. But if you look at your overall calls to what's actually getting into Jobber, that will tell you something pretty interesting to look at. And then from once it's in the system, how many of those actually booked? Once it booked, how many ran for revenue? And then how many of those, what kind of revenue, the quotes that turn into real revenue and real jobs.
Well, let's go to the run metric. What do you call it? Run
Run
rate.
with revenue. Yeah. Run
Okay,
with revenue.
explain that.
A lot of businesses will have jobs that run with little to no revenue, if any revenue. It's
Give me an
generally
example of that, like a service call for HVAC,
service
or
call for HVAC.
that just
Free
doesn't
one,
convert into
free
anything.
inspection, free quote, right? I'm
Okay.
going to go
Okay.
out to your house and give you a quote for what it's going to cost to do all your windows. I'm going to go out to your house and tell you a quote for what it's going to cost for pest control, those kind of things. Those don't run for revenue. They
Sure.
can result in revenue later on. That's why you're looking at that quote to sale number as well. But you really want to look at that because your call board might look totally busy, but there's no revenue on
No
that.
money.
There's no money on that
Where's
call
all the
board.
money?
That's right. So they're really key metrics. Each one independently don't necessarily tell you the story, to your point. If I had 15 free quotes go out today, that might be the best day of my life. I didn't make money that day, but if most of those convert to a sale, that was a good day, right? So you've got to really look at all the metrics combined.
Katie, this has been a great conversation. I want to pause for a minute and talk about Jobber. A lot of your clients use Jobber. What have you seen from Jobber that makes their operation so much better and run smoother?
Night and day difference for sure. Being able to even just understand what some of the metrics are that are occurring, being able to understand where there's holes or leaks in my revenue or in my processes. Most of our clients that are on Jobber, I get an advantage because they have the ability to look into their business from a 10,000 foot view. You're in your truck, you're driving on your road, you're doing all these things. You don't have time to dig through sheets of paper or go through hundreds of phone calls to figure out what's happening. Jobber takes all that information and puts it at your fingertips. You can really run your business from the top down view, as well as get into the weeds should you need to figure out how to solve a problem.
Yeah, I agree. That's well said. You need Jobber too. You need to run your business more smoothly and more effectively, and Jobber can do that for you. So new users get an exclusive discount at jobber.com/podcast deal. Get an exclusive discount and go start using Jobber today. Some might view this as a rabbit trail, but I want to go down this a little bit. So what you just said, you might have 15 sales that day for future work, but there was no revenue today.
Yep.
If you do that forever, is that sustainable? Or do you have to make sure that those jobs you're booking on that day are priced high enough to make up for the lost revenue today?
Well, I don't think it's a lost revenue. I think one of the things we don't look at in this business enough, and if you have Jobber, you can look at this, and that's the lifetime value of a customer. I think we are in such a today business, and that mindset has to shift a little bit. It's worth investing in customers when we look at the customer lifetime value. Most customers will service with you if you do a good job more than once. For example, HVAC, you should be seeing them at least once every 18 months. The goal would be to see them every 6 months, depending on your climate and your market. If you see that customer multiple times, that customer's lifetime value, even if I lost money up front, the lifetime value of that customer was significant to my business.
As long as you're doing the nurturing
Yes.
over time,
Yep.
but don't assume that clients will just stay with you forever because they had you come in their house for 15 minutes one time.
No, that's why, because you and I were talking about, like, why are you talking about operations, Katie? You're a marketer. That is exactly why, because then I get that repeat referral business, right? And if I can get my repeat referral business, it's exactly what you said, that lead nurturing, the higher I get that, guess what? The less I'm going to spend on marketing, and my marketing is going to go to growth marketing, right? So if I have 75% of my jobs with that repeat and referral, because I've done a great job with my lead nurturing, with the bookings and how I'm managing all of that, 75%, I, as a marketer, have to find the 25% demand to fill the rest of that board, but can also focus that extra investment into your growth, into finding 10 more jobs for the 3 more techs that you want to hire. So that's really, to me, lead nurturing operations is so key to marketing, and marketing should always understand what operations is doing so we can serve that master.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. What was the last one? The last metric you said was it average ticket?
Average
Okay, let's talk
ticket.
about that.
Oh, any marketer that doesn't ask or talk to you about your average tickets, make sure you talk to
Get
them.
a new marketer.
Get a new marketer. I don't want to say it, but yeah, get a new
I'll say that,
marketer.
yeah.
Yeah. And the reason why is not all jobs are the same. And what I'm willing to spend has to correlate with what you're going to make. A great example of that is in HVAC, right? If I'm just going out to try and find a tune up, I'm not going to make a lot of money on that tune-up. But if I find an install, I'm willing to spend a lot more money for that conversion. Now, there is a little bit of, most people aren't searching for replace my AC near
Mhm.
me. They're searching for, can you fix it? I heard a call one time. It's my favorite story. The lady's air conditioner was outside, was on fire. And she called and she's like, hey, can you guys come fix this? They're like, no, hang up the phone, call 911, call us back afterwards. We'll put in a new unit, but they don't want to think about repair, right? So you've
Mhm.
got a little bit of that, but really understanding what your average ticket is helps any marketer make sure that we're being responsible with your marketing budget.
Average tickets, average job
Yes.
size,
Yep.
so for HVAC, it might be 8 grand. For pressure washing, it might be 1,500.
Yep.
Question about that, especially my business. So we're going to talk about my business for a minute. We have two very distinct job sizes, and
Yep.
this is not just me. It's very common
Yep. Very common.
in home service, where like the recurring service is average job size 300-400 bucks, but then the big job ticket is 2,000. How do you go about handling that for your clients?
That's where I think understanding that whole process is really helpful, what your conversion is. So you talked about a great metric, which was quote to sale.
Hmm.
Understanding those key performance indicators and why it's so important to share that with your marketing team is, once we understand that, we'll know, oh, 1 in 4 convert. That lets us do some math on the back end. We've got to be responsible about how we're spending your marketing investment. But again, it's got to follow what's happening on the operation side. And that changes. That changes seasonally. That changes with the economy. That changes with election times that come up. So it's not a one-time conversation. You should be having this conversation regularly. And no one knows more about that than the contractor. No one knows more about that information than you.
Right.
So you have to share it, but your marketing company should be asking and then know how to put that into play.
One metric that I pay attention to, but I don't really know what it's called, is the conversion from recurring service to a big ticket sale,
Yeah.
a big upsell,
Yep.
basically, not a small upsell.
Right.
Basically, there's same day upsell
Yep.
that had the average ticket up a little bit,
Yep.
but then there's like we'll come back 2 weeks later and have a
Yep.
big hot new hot water heater, for
Yep.
example. Is there a term for that
I
metric?
actually think I've heard, I'm sure there is. Somebody probably knows.
It's huge for
Yeah.
us, though.
Yeah.
It's huge for
It's
us.
huge for every industry. If you think about, we'll go to drains, for instance. So they put a camera down, saw a main line failure. That's a full dig or a
Hmm.
trenchless install, right? I mean, those are the big tickets.
Right.
And we used to always joke when I started, like, you got to kiss a lot of frogs. So they're throwing those camera downs for free to find your prints.
Yeah.
Not that people's main line failures are things I root for, but I'm planting trees over people's sewer pipes all the time nowadays. It's an investment in the future, right? Planting the trees. But no, so it definitely is something. And you've got to look at that. And that's changed. The one I just said to you, drains, it used to be about 1 in 4 would convert. Now we're seeing about 1 in 5. Not sure if
Okay.
that's an indication of what's happening in the economy or the market. That's what we're seeing in the space. And understanding that is significant, because now I know it's 1 in 5. I might even have to change how much I'm willing to spend to even get that initial lead to put the drain down, because less of them are converting to those larger tickets.
So now that we've hammered out the metrics that you really pay attention to, I want to talk about how to improve those.
Yes.
I'm not sure if we can get to all of them, but what are some ways we can improve some of those metrics?
First, it's identifying them.
Okay.
right? Putting them down on a sheet of paper and being honest about them. But it's first about really identifying what they really are and being okay, not when you find out it's really 50% booking rate because not all the calls are getting in, you're not seeing them, you're spending
Mhm.
money on calls you don't even know happened. Not, grabbing your hair and running through the building screaming at CSRs. You've really got to understand where you're at first and then make a plan for each one. If it's cancellation rate, are you listening to some calls? Are you doing some trainings? Are you maybe even hiring somebody or leaning into the Facebook groups? My goodness, there's so many Facebook groups out there with such great advice that people are willing to do for free. One of the ones I've seen a ton of in this space, and the reason I love this space is there are people probably like yourself who are willing to mentor just, one phone call a month. Hey, this is what we did and it made a huge difference. Reach out to those kind of networks too. So that's on the cancellation or the booking rates, I think is a big one.
Question about that. For a lot of our listeners, they are tracking. They have call tracking numbers, and so
Yep.
they know if a Google LSA ad call comes through, it's
Yes.
different than an organic. Do you handle those any differently?
Yes.
Because there's a pain when I see an organic phone call slip through cracks, whatever, right? But when I pay $40 for a lead and it slips through cracks, I'm like, not good, right? It's a totally different emotional reaction.
I'm thrilled you asked about that actually. So like local service ads, they do use AI to listen to the calls and they know if you had what they call a meaningful interaction. So you should be prioritizing those LSA calls for sure because the higher the meaningful interaction, the higher the responsive rate, the better the responsive rate, the more likely you are to get more leads with local service ads. Just kind of a known thing. But on the organic, that made me sad a little bit inside because organics tend to convert at a higher revenue, right? They're probably existing customers or they're more like,
Really
yep, we see it across the board. The return on an organic lead is significantly higher than return on a paid lead.
interesting.
I'm not sure if there's loyalty in that or what. Google Business Profile leads tend to be your highest revenue, probably because they're looking for you or had some kind of
Yeah,
trust in your
they're
name.
looking for you. Yeah.
Next is organic and then paid.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Okay, so other metrics, how to improve other metrics. Any other?
So that we talked about the booking rate, and it's a super easy, great one. I think the next one, then repeat and referral customers, you got to know that number. And you already talked about that. I know Jobber has an email program that you can do some lead nurturing and some drip
Mhm.
campaigns, but anything along those lines, you'll be amazed. If you send an email out to your customers who serviced with you 3 months ago, 6 months ago, depending on what your business is. If it's pest control, service last month, but maybe didn't buy a contract, great time to reach back up. But putting out those campaigns, and it's probably the least expensive marketing investment with one of the best returns you'll make.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not emailing your clients
So
regularly, you're losing money.
100%.
If someone wants to start small and not necessarily hire a marketer yet, even though I think I recommend that myself, what are some tools? MailChimp, Jobber has a really good integration with MailChimp. Any other tools that you would recommend just for beginners doing
I think
10,000 a
there's a
month?
lot out there, but I don't even think you need 10,000 emails, you said a month?
10,000 a month. People are just doing 10,000 revenue a month.
Revenue month.
Small company.
That's great because I don't even think you necessarily need to invest in all of those if it's
Okay.
small enough. If you can get that email list, you might even be able to just grab the customers you serviced 1 month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and send out an email through your email system. You want to be a little careful because you got to make sure they opt in and a few other things. But I think MailChimp is excellent. HubSpot's got some
Mhm.
automation. If you want to get really crazy, there's companies called High Level that can set some things up that
Yeah,
with a little more sophistication. But MailChimp's a really, really great place to start.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Automation though, and something, and again, I'm not just saying this because we're here with Jobber or some of those other ones, lets you set it and then move on to the next thing. As a small business owner doing 10 grand a month, I don't have time to be my pro marketer. I don't have time
Mhm.
to also then be the, head cook and bottle washer, as well as the janitor, as well as someone going out, doing
Yeah.
the job. So
Yeah. And just to give our listeners a really different angle on this, I would say that even if you're small, I mean, this can be done at any level, is hire a VA
yes,
from somewhere
yes,
and have them call through your list
yes,
literally every month or every quarter.
yes,
Hey, it's the fall. It's time to do X, Y, and Z. Hey, it's the winter. Hey, it's the spring. And you'll be amazed
yes,
at the value you get
yes,
from the VA doing that. I
100%.
did that about a year ago for the first time, and it blew my mind.
Yeah, virtual assistant.
I couldn't believe
Yeah,
I couldn't believe that I hadn't been
100%.
doing it before that.
Yes. And I always try and load their lips with something. I don't want every time you talk to me and you don't want every time I talk to you to be a sales pitch.
Mm,
Think about something you can add for value. Hey, it's the fall time. Making sure you get some of those leaves out with a blower might make sure you get longer use out of your gutters. I don't know.
right,
I made that one up.
right.
But hey, it's time to change your filters if you haven't thought about that. Coming up, is daylight savings time potentially. Time to change the batteries in your smoke alarms.
Mm,
Just any of those little touches that you can give customers that make them understand that you're there for them, not just there to do something to them, generally helps quite a bit as well. And I second your comment about virtual assistants.
It doesn't change your booking rate, but it
Repeat
helps.
referral.
Yeah, that rate, it helps a
And the
lot.
higher you get your repeat and referral customers, the more you can invest in growth.
Mhm.
And I think that, maybe isn't necessarily everybody's goal, but we all want to be doing some growing and some, improvements in our revenue changes. So to me, the more you can increase that repeat and referral, the better my investment can be to take me to that next level.
Last thing, is there a way to increase average job size through marketing?
Yes,
Okay.
100%.
How do you do that?
I think there's a couple of ways. One is depending on the level of sophistication, some niche marketing or niche marketing. We talked about that, but niche or niche marketing. So if you know what your best jobs are, take a small percentage of your budget, if you're using a marketing budget, and put it towards that. Even if it's just a Facebook campaign in a area that has stucco homes and you're doing some repainting, right, and those kind of things. That's one thing. I think the second thing is how you present yourself in that marketing ahead of time. Someone did a study about adding the photo of the tech to the email or the
Mhm.
text message prior to coming out. It just creates that trust level. Now I see who's going to be in my home. People love that. Yeah.
They love knowing what the guy looks like before he gets there.
Well, it just makes me feel better. Now I'm not going to get someone knocking at my door that, with all the scams and things out there. Again, it's just about increasing that trust level, that communication to the client.
Katie, this has been great. I'm going to try to boil down our conversation in 3 actionable items here. Number 1 is create a content campaign after your job's book to keep them engaged. That might be an FAQ that's helpful. It might be reinforcing your 5-star reviews, whatever you can do to make people feel more comfortable so you get less cancellations the next day. Number 2 is be emailing your clients on a regular basis. If you're not emailing your clients regularly, you're losing money. Nurture them. Remind them that you exist and remind them that you're always there to solve their problem. And number 3 is add a photo of the tech coming to their house. It makes a big difference. Katie, I feel like it's just start tracking is the theme here.
Yeah, there's a lot of really great ideas, a lot of great takeaways. You summed it up really well. But I think the biggest thing is you cannot even start these things until you know where your numbers are at now.
Yeah.
So just take it, go in there, take a look, deep dive, identify what you think your key performance indicators are, and start tracking.
Yeah. Awesome. Katie, how do people find out more about you?
Katie Donovan with Camp Digital. You can check us out by going to our website, campdigital.com, or you can email me directly at katie@campdigital.com.
Great. Well, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
And thank you for listening. I hope that you heard something today that will help you improve your booking rate and your cancellation rates and all the other KPIs. My name is Adam Sylvester. I'm your host. You can always find me at adamsylvester.com. Your clients and your team deserve your very best, so go give it to them.